It's 7:30 on this Wednesday morning. You're welcome along to OTB AM. It's Eoin and Johnny Ward and Johnny's Toast with you all the way until 10 o'clock this morning. We'll get a sneak preview of that in just a moment. We'll have Mark Lawrenson with us after 8 o'clock to review last night's madness in the Champions League. Look ahead to Liverpool versus Villarreal. We'll have Matt Williams chatting rugby a little bit later on. And we're also remembering the work of art that is McCarthy's Park a little bit later on as well, because why not? Why not remember one of the greatest Irish sports documentaries we've seen? A lot of this morning, though, is going to be spent on trying to pick through what happened at the Etihad last night. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the Champions League. You can tweet us at Off The Ball, or you can comment on the YouTube stream if that's where you're getting us this morning. Nathan's also going to be with us for the morning. Nathan, how are you getting on?
Morning, lads.
A 10 out of 10 game last night?
Oh, yeah. Oh, this was as good as it gets. Outrageously good. One of those matches you have to watch back the highlights the following morning to remember how many good moments there were, how many brilliant goals there were. And it just seems to be every Tuesday, Wednesday night in the Champions League. It just gets better and better and better.
There were no highlights is the thing. The entire first half was an entire highlights package. I watched the whole game at around 11 o'clock last night, and I was like, okay, you can fast forward through the lulls here in the game. And it's like, there literally are no lulls. It took until about, I think, 60 minutes for there to be that first passage of play where Manchester City do that thing where they control possession for a while, the ball goes from side to side. But for that, literally the first half, it was completely frantic in a way that, from Real Madrid's perspective, you just wouldn't have expected. You would have thought that there would have been some sort of way that they could have just put the brakes on the pace of the game a little bit. But they were happy to go and let this thing explode into madness as well.
Well, from both sides, Real Madrid being the away team, but also Manchester City's style of play is often to just kill it and to dominate possession and to be incredibly patient. Whereas this felt like a big European night at a club with a massive European history where the energy becomes too much for the players and they just get swept up in the emotion of it. If Manchester City, coming away from that, will wonder how the tie is still alive. They should have scored 7-8 goals last night. They were, as an attacking force, as good as we have seen from them, maybe since Pep Guardiola came to the club. They just left it all out there. Like Kevin De Bruyne had possibly his best performance in a Manchester City jersey. It's been coming over the last few weeks. He has becoming more and more influential. The drive that he has, the strength that he has under pressure while dribbling with the ball, when there's 1-2 players on his back, to hold them off, to still be able to lift his head and to pick out a pass. Phil Foden looks to be right at the top of his game. Riyad Mahrez, I can never understand how he isn't an automatic selection in that Manchester City side. So attacking-wise, City were just brilliant. And I don't know how Real Madrid just hung on in there. Like, you look back at that game, it doesn't feel like any Real Madrid player was exceptional, but they just never die. And we've seen it consistently during this year's tournament, through the history of the Champions League. They just find a way, and Luka Modric at crucial moments of the game without being at his very best, can pick out a pass, can ease a little bit of pressure. And then the just pure genius of Benzema to score the opening goal, which maybe unsettles Manchester City a little bit when I say that, but they came back straight away and good as scored another couple. It was. You just can't wait for the second leg.
Yeah, it's going to be brilliant.
That moment where, Nathan, where Mahrez is through a 2-0 and doesn't square for Foden and Guardiola completely loses the plot, I think for me was just like, you can tell how much this means to him. And even at 2-0, he's like, we need a third goal here. And you're thinking like 2-0 up against Man City or against Real, they're fine. They'll coast through this. And you could tell that he was... Maybe that's the reason he doesn't play Mahrez all the time. Like, why did you not square the ball to Foden?
Well, for him to hit it with his right foot as well is probably completely unacceptable in the Manchester City culture, where you always have to take the right option. When he's bearing down a goal, you're waiting for the pass, because that's always what Manchester City do. But I think the stadium was so alive at that stage, and Manchester City were so alive that he just felt, well, this is the moment. Everything is going right for us. And at that stage, I was a little bit disappointed in that, again, we built these matches up to be these stone cold classics, and thinking, City are going to win this 3 or 4-0. Yeah, we might get a little bit of something next week with a sign of a Real Madrid comeback, but this isn't going to be one of those nights. And I'm still not quite sure, having watched it live and watched back the highlights, how it turned around. Because, as I say, Manchester City were just so good in ways, in a different style than we have seen them be so good. This was, I don't want to say it was almost like Manchester City playing like Liverpool, in that it was more that sort of shock and awe style of real high pace and intensity and less control. than you would expect from a Manchester City side, which it does seem a lot of people spend a lot of time with their cameras on Pep Guardiola, even supporters or journalists just planted there, because there's dozens of videos of his reactions to every moment in the match. And listen, he's always on edge, I think, during any game, a Carabao Cup game. But
this is his legacy, though. This is his legacy. This is it. Like, they got to win the Champions League.
They do. But like, his legacy is sort of set in stone in many ways. As one of the greatest managers. But it would be an underachievement not to win a Champions League with this group of players who, as a squad, the best in Europe, the most expensively assembled in Europe. They should be winning a Champions League. I do think that things can happen in knockout competitions where an offside decision, think back to the game against Spurs a couple of years ago, where there's late goals disallowed and there's late winners. Things can happen that mean the best team doesn't necessarily always win the Champions League, but to go through a 5-6 year spell and not win one with this group of players, it doesn't tarnish his legacy, but it certainly doesn't enhance it.
Speaking of cameras that are being trained on Pep Guardiola, we can have a look at what his reaction was to Fernandinho getting turned by Vinicius last night. This is fan footage from the Etihad last night. Keep your eyes on Pep. Hands in the head as soon as he gets turned. On his knees, on one knee, hand on the ground as he sees Vinicius go through, back of the net. Devastated, fuming. I love how in the aftermath of the game, Pep is like, this is fine, everything's absolutely grand, Real Madrid, good team. Like, Pep Guardiola almost oversaw, I think, an 8-2 last night. This could have been Bayern-Barcelona last night, and not too many things needed to go differently. Maybe not at that magnitude, but it could have been a 6-2 last night. I think Pep Guardiola is fuming this morning when he thinks back to some of those moments last night.
Like, some of them are unavoidable. If Fernandinho, which was his decision to put him on at right back when John Stones goes off injured. Now, they obviously have problems with Cancelo suspended, Kyle Walker not there, but you still wonder, he'll often play Nathan Ake at left back. Could you play Nathan Ake at right back? Because from the moment Fernandinho came on, you felt there's a real opportunity for Real Madrid to get him here, because how can he ever have the pace that you would need to play in that position right now? But it could have been. This could have been a landmark night for Manchester City. It could have been City's greatest ever performance. It might well have been City's greatest ever performance last night. But the result now doesn't reflect that. And with City's history in the tournament and of everything that could possibly go wrong, going wrong, whether it's a tactical selection or a referee's decision or just not performing on the night, with that history on one side and Real Madrid's history, both this season and historically, of just somehow always been able to get the job done, he must be incredibly nervous going to the Bernabeu next Wednesday night.
I think part of the Fernandinho thing as well is he comes on and he skins his man down the right hand side, gets the assist in front of the goals, and he's like, I can do this. Yeah. I'm 24 again. This is absolutely fine. Vinicius, I'm going to take you. I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to do it again. I'm going to get down the right wing and get a second assist. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually.
How tight he was, just like, there's a lapse of judgment in terms of like where he is in life at the moment. But I mean, in fairness,
he's Bruce Banner when he's defending. He's the Incredible Hulk when he was going forward.
Yeah. In fairness, like, they should go over there and, like, they're a goal up. They should just basically manage that game and play them on the break, no problems, like, in theory. But
City don't generally play on the break. Like, City's defined style is to have control. And by giving up control of the game, I'm sure the feeling would be that you allow Real Madrid more opportunities. The problem with Madrid is just the genius that is there, with Benzema being right up there among the best players in the world, certainly the most informed player in the world right now, that out of nothing, consistently, back to back Champions League games, he has been able to create goals. So I don't know if City can go away from home, let Madrid dominate possession. I think they certainly need more control than they had last night. They need to go back to, I don't want to get into a debate about our City boring or exciting or whatever, but just that, 1,000 passes per game, control it, not any sort of shock and awe like they had last night. But can you do that in the Bernabeu in a Champions League semi-final away from home? I'm not too sure.
It is 20 to 8. You're with us here on OTB AM, which is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Let's tell you what's coming up over the course of the next couple of hours. Champions League, we're going to stick on this for the next little while, and then Mark Lawrence will hop on the line at 8:10. We'll also preview Liverpool against Villarreal before we're done this morning. Sports pages coming your way at 8:25 this morning. A couple of interesting bits in there, not least Darragh O'Shea having a bit of a pop off Cork, calling them a disgrace this morning. We might get producer Colin Bouygues' reaction to that to defend the people of Cork a little little
What
bit
sort
later.
of Vieira-ism is that on?
I don't know. This is really avoiding the script, ripping up the script, and giving Cork a little bit more petrol for their sense of trying to take Kerry down in a couple of weeks. We've got the news update with Cahill a little bit later on, and Have You Seen coming up at 10 to 9, which is on McCarthy's Park. Matt Williams then, we'll be talking rugby at 10 past 9, and then some OTB reaction from 9:30. Johnny, you were out and about last night. How did you manage to watch? You watched this in chunks, I understand, last night?
Watched. Was at the low gig, Vicar Street. Felt very old. Most people there seem to be like 50 odd. So they're going on.
Felt very young, I would have thought, if that's the average age.
Yeah, but you're looking around, you're like, everyone has beards here, like, and so on and so forth. Watch the first half.
What sort of gig are you going to where they wouldn't have beards?
Everyone has beards and like grey beards as well. But I watched the first half in a new bar at Dudley's, and then watched the second half, and I came back like you and just put it on. And it was just like you couldn't take your eyes off it. It was like how Man City, like, what was the XG in that game? Like, it certainly wasn't 4-3, and it was, I don't know, part of me doesn't want them at all to succeed in anything, just the way the club is structured, and I certainly hope they don't win the Champions League. And you're just looking at these like Real players who probably should be past it at this stage but can still do it, and I don't know, you can see Guardiola that he's like, you know, this should be home and hosed, and it's not. And
yeah, would you believe the XG, if we're rounding up and down, it was actually 3-2 last night.
XG,
I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
Man City were 3.08, Real Madrid were 1.66, according to the XG philosophy on Twitter.
How was your evening?
Very good. I was at Metronomy at the Olympia. Unfortunately, I didn't get the first half in before the game.
Yeah.
I saw 2-0 and I was like, grand. This is a highlights package. You'll be able to get a good sense of things. And then when I saw 4-3, I was like, right, I'm going to have to watch the full 90 when I get home. But, I mean, as I said, absolutely.
The funny thing was Real, like, they shouldn't be able to do this. But even, I don't know, Nathan, at 2-0, you're kind of like, nah, this still could be a little bit of a twist to this, like.
In one way, but City were creating so many chances, it felt inevitable they were going to get a third. It was just that we have seen Real Madrid do it so many times. And it wasn't as if they got back into the game by getting a stranglehold on it. It was just one brilliant delivery, a sensational finish from Benzema that got them there. But there is something innate in Real Madrid that they can hang about. Like, if they were to somehow win the Champions League this season, to go and beat Man City and then Villarreal or Liverpool, like, it'll be up there with one of the great managerial achievements from Carlo Ancelotti, who, you know, on this show has questioned quite a bit about just how good he is as a manager. And like, last night sums him up. Like, was there anything about last night's performance from Real Madrid that you would say, you know what, tactically Carlo Ancelotti got it spot on last night? Not really. Like, Manchester City were absolutely rampant with the way that Real Madrid set up. But they have enough talent in players that shouldn't have the talent they still have at that age, in Modric and Benzema in particular, and the bit of pace of Vinicius and Rodrigo. And I thought Fede Valverde was excellent last night, maybe their best player consistently on the pitch. But somehow he always seems to have a group of players who just get a job done for him. But, you know, could any manager have done that last night? I don't know. Like, that's the genius in many ways of Ancelotti.
Ancelotti always feels like as well that everything happens to him by accident, that he's just standing there and all the chaos is ensuing around him, and he's kind of like shrugging his shoulders, almost like, what can I do about it? Like, it's up to you. And like, obviously that's not the reality of what Ancelotti has done. Like, I mean, he could go in and win a Champions League title in the 2020s, having won one in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. It'd be an extraordinary career. Like, Nathan, when you mentioned there the slander of Ancelotti that's been on this show in the past, like, I'm not sure who even that is. Like, what's your personal take on it? Like, and how many current managers would you have ahead of him in terms of the great European managers?
In terms of European history, or just right now? Like, are you giving him? Well, he has one of the biggest jobs. Different managers have different ways, and like Pep Guardiola couldn't be more the opposite on the sideline than Carlo Ancelotti. You see, Ancelotti's reaction to everything is nothing to do with me, both the good and the bad. It's not like he's trying to claim credit for the good stuff either, it seems. Whereas Guardiola is, you know, pulling the strings. I always go back to watching Manchester City, Manchester United about 4 years ago, and I spent the whole game pretty much watching Guardiola was sitting right behind them.
It's like
and
the
Danilo
Damien
was
Duff
playing
modern Shelburne.
right back. Well, yes, Damien Duff Shelburne, of course. Danilo was playing it right back. It was the game where City were about to win the league and United came back. Pogba, probably his best game in United jersey. But Danilo stood right in front of Pep Guardiola. And I don't think he did a single thing in that first half that Pep Guardiola didn't tell him to do. So he stood there and he waited, almost ready to pounce, and he'd be in a sprinter's position, ready to run up the wing, and he would wait from the shout from Guardiola to go. Like, that's how hands-on he was. That whether it was a lack of trust in the player or a tactic that was there, but everything he did, it was the manager telling him in every moment to do it. And that's not
what a coach should do, like that. But that's not what a coach should do, you know. And that's kind of the mad thing about him, like, you know, basically the coach should like be able to sit off and do very little. And even at League of Ireland level, it's interesting to observe the difference. Like, I was at the Rovers in the Dock game recently. Stephen Bradley and Stephen O'Donnell, totally different. Stephen O'Donnell would be more living it all. Bradley's just taking, like, you should trust your players to basically know what to do in a game situation.
Gee, Stephen O'Donnell really lives it all.
He does. He just, but he just, like, he's, and you can see he's not that long from like being a player himself. And when you make the wrong pass or you don't like do exactly what he would have done in that situation, you can see that frustration. And for me, that was exactly like that with the Mahrez Foden thing last night, where Guardiola's like, how do you not square the ball? It's the most obvious thing ever.
But does it make a difference? And, you know, if we had a former player on, and I think we've spoken about this before with Kilban, who would feel that, you know, players, once the game is on, take little or no notice of what the manager is saying on the sideline or doing on the sideline. But you certainly don't want the manager sort of making a fool of himself on the sideline at the same time. Like, Guardiola's different. He obviously had a lack of trust maybe in that player. But I do think, you know, if you're losing it, absolutely losing it on the sideline at a player consistently, can't but affect him in some way. So, sorry, go back to the original point. Like, Ancelotti clearly has a way of managing players, maybe more than coaching players, and being able to allow them perform in the best possible manner. So he's always going to get big jobs. Is he suited to Everton? Was he suited to Everton? I'm not quite sure. Doesn't seem like he possibly was, but, you know, is he in that circle of just going from Real Madrid and maybe someday he'll end up at Juventus? Like, he's never going to be stuck for cash. He's never going to be stuck for a job. Yeah. But is he going to come in and transform a side?
It definitely feels as if Real Madrid have like stumbled upon a couple of managers who are perfect for that dressing room, from Zidane to Ancelotti, and it could end up being the exact same outcome in terms of winning the Champions League. There's been a big reaction, obviously, to what's happening. Just before you come back in there, Nathan, Michael says, very enjoyable game, but lack of any defence was frustrating. Shifty Lad says, Kenny Cunningham would need counselling after that match. Michael Collins says City will regret not putting this game beyond Real Madrid last night. If they get Casemiro back, then they have a real chance, excuse the pun, in Madrid. And MJ Maloney 1 says, of course City go there and dominate. Didn't Chelsea go there 2 weeks and better them and should have gone through? City are a far better side. City will go there and win easily. Do you share that level of confidence, Nathan?
Well, they should do. On the basis of last night's performance, and as that texter said, on the basis that they're a far better side than Chelsea are, they should. It wouldn't be a shock in any way. It would be very much along the form lines of the talent in the two squads if City went there and won well. But that ain't how this works. That is not how this works, and it hasn't been how it's worked for Manchester City throughout Champions League recent history, or for Real Madrid. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we had more of the same again next week.
It's a failure of Guardiola if they don't get through this, because they're a far better team than Real. They have like
Is it though?
Yeah, it is, because this is like, you can see on the sideline last night, he's kind of losing the plot a bit, like that this game isn't over and done with. They should be winning this game, simple as. They should be.
But who do you blame for them not being out of the sight last night? You can't blame Guardiola for that, really.
Not last night. They have 2 legs, so just go over there and get the job done. Like, Liverpool would get the job done against Real Madrid, no problem. Like, they would literally just win this game because that's what they do. Like, so Man City, the whole situation with Guardiola is that, like, they will win the league. You know, every other year. If they don't win it this year, if they should win the Champions League under his watch, and if they don't do it this year, he feels that I think they should do it, and like, they should be winning this game. They've better resources, they've better players. Like, they conceded 3 goals at home against Real Madrid.
It was quite funny last night that immediately after Pep gets booked, Real Madrid go and score. Like, I'm not sure it has a real impact at all. I don't think Fernandinho is suddenly going to become fast if Pep Guardiola doesn't get booked in that moment. But I think, like, other than that, there's I don't think there's very much you could look at from Pep last night. Like as when you could very much make the case that the Fernandinho thing after he gets that assist is something that worked out and is a bit of a masterstroke. Of course, I mean the other side of things maybe go against him. So maybe
they're a goal up going to Madrid. Just get the job done, like simple as.
Yeah. We have to see how it plays out. I think there have been a very specific moments over the last couple of years where you're like, that's clearly your fault, Pep. But I think from the first half of this game, from this two-legged tie, I think you can say you'd be clutching at straws, I think, to say this is Pep's fault. But in a wider sense, of course, it'd be a failure of Pep's tenure if he wasn't to win a Champions League with the squad that he has, with the resources that they have, and some of the positions that they've been in as well in some of these big ties. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. Who was the best player on the pitch last night, Nathan, in your view?
De Bruyne, I think.
Yeah.
I just feel his game has gone to another level over the last few weeks. The match against Liverpool, even if you think back, and there was similar moments last night, think back to that late chance that Riyad Mahrez had against Liverpool. Like De Bruyne is driving through the middle. Was it Van Dijk who was all over the back of him? And he still had the strength to be able to hold him off, to be able to lift his head, to be able to pick out this otherworldly pass. And he did that time and time again last night. So, listen, De Bruyne, it's no shock that he is one of the best players in the world, but he is doing it in the biggest games and being the outstanding player in a pitch full of outstanding players, which is a difficult thing to do. I still look at Phil Foden every time I see him and go, it's almost because he's at Manchester City and they've so many good players and they don't rely on him in some ways that you don't look at Manchester City and think, well, if Phil Foden doesn't turn up, Manchester City won't be able to win a game. That we haven't fully come around to appreciating his genius. Like, he might well be the best young footballer in world football. It's not a startling revelation to say such a thing, but he is a big game player. Every big match already for City, he starts and he performs, and he has an unbelievable ability to just keep hold of the ball, off balance, under pressure, tight angles, like his close control. Again, go back to that Liverpool game, and go back because it was sat watching it at the stadium, and you're kind of noticing things off the ball. But he didn't get involved in the game maybe as much as City would have wanted, but every time he got it, he did the right thing, and he'll try a trick. He'll have that little bit of confidence. Like, at 21, to be doing it at that level, you don't want to get into wild predictions, but you could well be talking about English football's greatest ever player if he keeps going at the rate he's going at.
And I think that whenever Manchester City put in a performance like they did last night, you start to wonder, has Pep Guardiola finally settled on his first choice front three? And it's hard to suggest that like Mahrez, Jesus and Foden wouldn't do the job in the Bernabeu. And I wonder, has the last two games of football for Gabriel Jesus completely changed or slightly changed how Manchester City view his future at the club?
I wonder, would he have started last night if he hadn't scored the fourth weekend? I know. He hadn't started, he did, and then he scored twice last night. You just can't see Pep not doing something at the Bernabeu. That maybe Sterling will come in and play on the left, and Foden will play at the false nine, or maybe De Bruyne plays in a more advanced role, and Gundogan comes in, and something will happen. Something will change. Is he going to stick with that front three of Mahrez, Jesus, and Foden? He never does it. He never just sticks with the same front three. So that does feel like their best front three. It's the more orthodox front three. It's the more sort of boring, straightforward front three in a way, of Mahrez naturally on the right, Foden naturally on the left, and Jesus, as a goal scorer and a poacher and just plays through the middle. But that's never how Pep looks at it.
Mark Johnson's been in touch to say City spend billions and score lots of goals, but God, they can't defend for their lives. They are overrated. How can they be the best team where they have no defence? Liverpool have it perfect.
They have an unbelievable defence. Like this goals happen in games. You see the exact same criticism of Liverpool defensively, with the high line and how they get caught out, and how can a team with that quality of defenders, that's football. It's not just straightforward and running in straight lines and a simple thing. Like, teams are always going to create opportunities. You're playing Real Madrid. Yes, Manchester City have a deeper squad and have more resources right now and should win that game. This is a Champions League semi-final. You're always going to give up opportunities. Like, you give up that opportunity against Burnley. Wout Weghorst probably doesn't stick it away, but Karim Benzemas sticks it away. Like, that's the level you're playing at. And yeah, they were way more open last night than you would expect from Manchester City. But a defence of Ruben Diaz and Emerson Porter, maybe it just shows the importance of the fullbacks that he has settled on, of having Walker at right back and could sell out left back, even though I think Zinchenko was brilliant. But having the two of them and their ability to move into midfield and the support they give midfield, maybe that closes all of that down. And Stones and Zinchenko don't offer that, and that gives a bit more protection to the back too. But it's a Champions League semi-final. You're always going to give up chances. So to say that they're weak defensively is an absolute nonsense.
Yeah,
it's the second leg. They should be able to manage it second leg defensively, because like they'll be stepping back a bit and playing it on the break, and that's where you get it done. Like last night, they're a goal up. It was a mad game, but the second leg, just like be assured at the back and basically be able to hit them on the break, and they should be able to win the game.
I think that's just like the perfect recipe for there to be a complete bottle job for Manchester City. The first few minutes, you're like, this does not feel like you're on the front foot like the last game, and that's why
you can see the photo now, can't you? After Real Madrid win the second leg, which will be it'll be a photo from last night. Manchester City are leading 2-0. Riyad Mahrez is clear through and goal with Phil Foden free in the middle, and it's how did Manchester City conspire to lose this from this position?
Things you love to see.
That's like the Sterling Leon opportunity, really, isn't it? That screenshot that does the rounds, or Sterling celebrating against Tottenham in 2019. The sort of photos that happened before unfortunate events happen, and Manchester City have been in a hell of a lot of them. Just before we move on to Liverpool, just to like pay tribute to Karim Benzema. After the game last night, he was talking about the Panenka, and he says, "I always have it in my head that if you don't take a penalty, you will never miss a penalty. That's my mental confidence, and that's all. I have a lot of confidence in myself." And I kind of felt that, he got a laser to the face while stepping up to the penalty, and I think it was at that moment that he decided, I'm going to Panenka this. I'm like, screw you, Manchester City fan with the laser. I'm going to try and do this in the most embarrassing way possible.
The quality of his first strike is like it's just like, I mean, you just like what he's doing, Nathan, at his age, and like at a time when the game was slipping away from them. That first strike is just like amazing technique.
He's at that level that few players get to, that everything seems to slow down when he's around, that it makes it look so simple. And it's not just his finishing, it's his all-round play, how he can make the ball stick. Like, again, the confidence he has to try a little back heel or a little flick in a dangerous position, and for it to come off all the time. And then to try a Panenka, considering, missing his last couple of penalties, as someone said, is it a full Panenka if the ball isn't dipping by the time it hits the goal? Like, he did give it a fair belt for a Panenka. It was one of those just under the crossbar type jobs. But we've gone so deep into football analysis in recent years. Like, a penalty is no longer just a penalty. We want the entire thought process of. So
would he have tried it under Guardiola?
Oh yeah, I think Benzema would have tried it under any manager.
Maybe.
Like, this is like beside the point here, but like, is it really difficult to aim a laser at someone? Because it like hits his face beforehand, and it's like, okay, well, this is going to happen for the penalty, and then the laser just disappears. Is the guy in the crowd like aiming wildly and actually just can't find him before taking the strike?
I don't know how far away he's. Like, if you have 150 of them in an African game, maybe it's a little bit different, but didn't put him off anyway.
No, certainly not.
When did lasers come back into fashion?
Yeah.
Because, Johnny, when we were in school, do you remember when... I'm saying because obviously we're from a different generation to own.
Our Irish teacher used to have like...
Used to be able to... on the back of the head. Man. On the back of the head all day.
Could your Irish teacher have stuck away a Panenka after such an incident?
Under that sort of pressure?
No, he wasn't able for the pressure of the laser on the board, so no, I don't think so.
Liverpool tonight, Nathan, are you like? There's been this interesting kind of narrative about Liverpool won't underestimate Villarreal the way the previous two giants who've been taken out by Villarreal underestimated them. Are we sure that's what happened in the last two rounds, though, that Villarreal just got underestimated? Like, I'm sure there's a degree of that, but are we not looking at Unai Emery, who's actually deep down a bit of a genius when it comes to figuring out these one-off games? I guess over two legs, but still, he's proven himself over the last two rounds.
Yeah, I think there's got to be a bit of respect given to Real if you get to a Champions League semi-final, and you'd question the mentality of the players in previous rounds if they're underestimating in a Champions League last 16 or quarter-final what a team can bring. On paper, as Johnny said, these are the sort of games Liverpool win. Been at home in the first leg. Is it quite the magical Anfield night? But if they can get an early goal, like they have shown over the last week, they can sort of win anyway. They come out against Manchester United, like two games against, almost similar tonight with less emotion, but the last two games where you look at Manchester United and Everton, two matches they really should win, but you think it's United and Everton, something will happen. And they just come out and absolutely blitz Manchester United from the first minute, never give them a sniff. And then they go up against Everton, who make it an absolute dogfight and a real scrap and a messy game. And they just stay patient and they use the depth that they have and they make the changes off the bench and they're able to do it that way. So it does feel as though they're in a very good place right now, that whatever Villarreal bring tonight, that Liverpool will have an answer for it, whether it's in the starting 11 or whether it's off the bench. But are you going to sit here and say that Liverpool are going to have this done after the first leg? I don't think so. Like, that's not how Villarreal is set up. Like, they are the underdogs. They're used to being the underdogs. They're used to having teams come, dominate possession, expect to win games. So it could end up being a little bit tighter than people expect.
Colm's just making the point in my ear here that Unai Emery is Porto era Jose Mourinho. I think he's it's
no, it's not. He's not in any way in that. Well, that's the only comparison, because firstly, Jose Mourinho was the new kid on the block. Even he came up in Sky Sports Premier League seasons yesterday, and you're still looking back at Jose in his first press conference, and the charisma just oozing off him. Like, what a bloody good-looking man he was then, still is. But nearly 20 years ago, he just comes in and changes English football. But that Porto team also had a group of players who were at an age that they were all going to kick on and go around Europe and go to Chelsea and be major players in European football over the next 5-10 years. This Villarreal side is at a slightly different stage. Yes, some of them I'm sure will move on during the summer, but there's a lot of good, hardened professionals in there as well who are at a slightly later stage of their career who can, who will they all go during the summer? I don't think so. So I don't know if that's a real comparison.
Europa League, Champions League is just this clarification there. Also, okay. I mean, who are you to say that Unai Emery isn't a handsome man?
I would never cast aspersions on any other man.
Connor Joy says, "How do you know it was a man with the laser?" He asks. I don't. It's a very good point.
Yeah, if you watch all the FBI file shows, it's always a man who commits the crime. But in fairness to Ancelotti, like Nathan, like you mentioned, like Mourinho, Ancelotti at his age has evolved and can still manage the dressing room. Whereas you look at Mourinho and you compare him to those Porto days, and it's like, well, you didn't change enough.
No, but again, you're like, Ancelotti seems to be a very different type of character from most modern managers in that he never gets massively emotional. Like Jose still just can't help himself against getting caught up in it, either referees, opposition, his own players. Whereas actually maybe just been a bit more solid, relaxed, chilled out is how you keep going into your 60s, because it does feel a bit sad now when you see Mourinho. He pops up after another Roma game and he's doing the same things. You're going, like, where's that guy gone? Even at his worst at Chelsea or at Real Madrid when he was up to no good, there's still something there about Mourinho that was captivating, that was quite likeable, that was a bit of a rogue, whereas now it's all got a little bit boring.
Yeah, is there a case to be made that then when Pep and Klopp are kind of done with their current Manchester City and Liverpool jobs respectively, there's just a stage where they're like, I'm kind of done with this, because
fight climate change.
Climate change could be a good start, but they just might find that their high octane, high energy style of management is, you get to a certain age and it's like, okay, gonna park that.
Well, Pep's done it before and stepped away, and you'd expect when you leave City that he'll step away again for a couple of years before. Like, these guys can't give it up.
Yeah.
Well, you do wonder.
It's one thing I never understand in football, like Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard. I just can't understand it.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot understand why Frank Lampard is managing Everton. Like, he has it all. He has all the money he'll ever need. He's one of English football's greatest ever players. Yet somehow he needs to put himself through this.
And it's going to end in failure.
A perfectly nice life.
It's going to end in like 9 out of 10 managerial careers, essentially, they get sacked and that's their last job. Like, so why would you do it? Like, there's so much else going on in the world. Why would you get immersed in this?
Just some sort of weird addiction.
But also, like, the appeal to add to your legacy. Like, if Frank Lampard's getting into management because he thinks...
But he's never going to add to his legacy.
No, but he thinks...
There's nothing Frank Lampard can do now that is going to add to his legacy. Maybe at the start when he got the Chelsea gig and you win the Champions League and you're...
Yeah.
Suddenly you're past John Terry as their greatest ever legend. But now, to go to Everton, like, is he a hero around Everton because he saves them from relegation on the last day of the season? I don't know if he is.
No, but he's seeing that as a stepping stone back to the big time, and like it's not about what the reality is. It's about what these guys think they can achieve, and I mean they didn't get to where they were in football without thinking that they were the absolute best around.
It's the thinking as well though. Like if you're like the wife of like Guardiola or Klopp or these characters, like I mean, what sort of life is that? Like, do they think about anything else in the whole day other than the next game or the last game or football? Like it's
but they don't have time. They don't have time. I noticed that after the Liverpool match at Guardiola's press conference. When you sit down and think about it, he was talking about the intensity of the calendar, and they played Liverpool on the Sunday evening, and they were playing Champions League on the Wednesday. And you think, like, this is a massive game. So they barely have a training session on the Monday, but you suddenly have to prep for that. You travel to the match on the Tuesday, you play Wednesday, then they're back playing again in the Premier League on Saturday. Like, you never mind, think about life outside. You never get a day off. You never get every single hour, every minute. None of them can be wasted because of the intensity of the calendar and the importance of the game. So, yeah, how they switch off, how they somehow stay mentally stable under that level of pressure, I have no idea.
Donny OD88 has been in touch asking, has Johnny mentioned Gavin Bazunu or the League of Ireland yet?
We still have time.
Yeah. Anything to say about Bazunu or the League of Ireland?
He missed out on the Team of the Year, actually, Bazunu, in League One, which I thought was surprising because I would have imagined he was the best keeper in the league. Interesting point, Nathan, as your father will know well about Shivan Rovers. Gavin Bazunu actually played in Killeen. Played for Shamrock Rovers underage in a game in Killeen in the Shivan Rovers pitch. Yeah, so
I think they're going to build a statue in his honour.
Probably will. Yeah. I was there for his debut as well against Bray when kind of I think the whole Shamrock Rovers story changed when they put the 16-year-old kid in goal and he saved that penalty against Sadler in Cork. And I don't know. We're in a good place in terms of our defenders and our goalkeeper for the time being, I think. Anyway,
for sure. Is there LOI late night coming your way this Friday?
There is. I've been off the last two Fridays. So we've left Johnny and Shane. I think there's no real reason for me to return. Just go back to relaxing on a Friday night. But yeah, we're going to be back. It's the League of Ireland calendar is, it like everything else is a bit screwed up in that there's so many games at the start of the season. And I was looking at the Shamrock Rovers fixture list, sort of trying to plan out for the kids as to when and where we're going to game. So they're away this week. Rovers, but then they've got 3 home games in the space of 7 days against Finn Harp, Sligo and Derry, and then over the next 2 months they've got 2 home matches. Like,
yeah,
how clubs are meant to try and flourish when that's how your fixture list works out, I'm never quite sure. And like, they're not alone. Most clubs are in that sort of scenario. So from what I think is the 13th of May all the way through to the 22nd of July, 2 home matches.
There is a wider point here in that you now have like billionaires getting involved in investing in the League of Ireland, whether that's for like the reasons of making money or for something else. But you have like the Comers are going to take over Galway United in terms of an 85% stake. You Philip O'Doherty in Derry, and you've Dermot Desmond. I think he owns a quarter of Shamrock Rovers, and there's probably never been a better time to invest. And Nathan will attest to this as well. Tala is becoming like I don't know, Nathan. It feels like something different in the League of Ireland. You go there now and you just expect 6,000-7,000 people or to be sold out. It's a nice stadium. You expect a very good quality of football. A lot of kids there, and the League of Ireland is, I guess, that's where it wants to be.
Yeah, and listen, as I'm sure all supporters of other clubs are ready to get in touch, Shamrock Rovers Stadium, was there because of a partnership, a government partnership. You could say they were handed the stadium, but more clubs need to be handed stadiums. More clubs need to be given facilities because people will go if the facilities are there. And there were some stats out yesterday. I think, was it somebody up north, Johnny, who was tweeting, look what Niall Quinn has done for the League of Ireland with the rise in average attendance over the last couple of years. But the rise in average attendance from 2017, 2018 to now is every club pretty much doubling their average attendance. So people are buying in, and I think they're buying in not because of, I don't think quality of football is ever a factor or will ever be a driving factor in why people go.
I wouldn't agree with that now.
I don't think so, because like the quality of football is good, but I don't think that can be the selling point, because you've got right next door.
Is that not the whole point though? Like, I mean, well, like,
no, I think it's to go like you can have a good entertaining game of football without it being the same quality as a a Premier League match. I think people want to go and enjoy a match, be entertained, see some goals, but also go and have a decent seat, be able to go and buy something at halftime. They just want to go and have a night out. So
yeah, I don't know about that though. Like if you're fed on a diet of the endless TV, Premier League and everything else, like I don't think like the League of Ireland, the quality of the football in terms of the entertainment spectacle has gone way up, and I'm not sure you could get away with it if it weren't.
I don't know. Has it?
Oh,
like is the quality? I think it's got better because football naturally has got better.
Yeah, there is that as well.
Teams now play far more football. There's far less just hoofing it up. Unless you go down Moscow United maybe. But most teams now are keeping it on the ground, playing a decent bit of ball. But what I'm saying is that you can't. It's obviously never going to be comparable to the quality you will see on a Tuesday night in the Champions League. I think what it needs as a selling point is something else. The football will take care of itself. It needs to be, whether it's that community side of it, or just making it a good Friday night, which I think is what a lot of people have done. Like Friday night's now our League of Ireland night. It's something to do that's not going to the pub. You'll have a bit of crack. You'll see a decent game of football. You'll have the opportunity to see players who in 2-3 years' time, you'll be able to tell your mates, I remember watching him, as Johnny just said, down in Shivan Rovers, and now he's a superstar. So I think they're the things that
you can relate to it as well.
Out.
Like I watched the game with Adrian Taff last night. It was the LMFM commentaries for Dundalk. He's saying like, I'm a Man United fan, but like I can't relate to this anymore. Like when you go to League of Ireland game, you might meet them on the street. They're not on massive money. Like they're probably struggling to get a mortgage. I can relate to these players, and like it means something to me.
Being a Manchester United fan is probably half the problem in terms of not being able to relate to a team, to be fair. Nathan, good stuff this morning. Thanks a million.
Thanks, lads.